Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. In just 8 years, India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country. According to estimates in a new United Nations report released on Monday, India is also expected to add 273 million people by 2050 and will remain the most populated until the end of the century. The report stated that in 2019, India has an estimated population of 1.37 billion and China 1.43 billion, and by 2027, India's population is projected to surpass China's. The global population is projected to increase by another 2 billion people by 2050, from 7.7 billion in 2019 to 9.7 billion 30 years down the line. The report has highlighted higher fertility rates, growing older population and migration are few reasons for projections of the population growth. Health economists claim that the major implications of population growth will be increase in young and older population that will face a lack of resources in the future. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze if India's booming population is a boon or a bane. Joining me on the program today are Poonam Mutreja, Executive Director, Population Foundation of India; A.K. Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of the Business Standard; Professor S.K. Singh, Department of Mathematical Demography and Statistics, International Institute for Population Sciences; and Sushil Chandra Tripathi, former Secretary, Ministry of Human Resource Development. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. I'd like to begin the program with S.K. Singh's. India is all set to be the most populous nation in the world come 2027. What are the implications of this?
Yeah, good evening, sir, and all the panelists. I would like to look into 4 different domains. Population growth has implications for sustainable development because India is not growing uniformly. If you look at population growth of India, growth per se is not a problem right now. After almost over 2 decades of our population control program after ICPD 1994, but the most recent National Family Health Survey provides us opportunity that TFR varies significantly across various wealth quintile. India, if you are considering a composition of 5 socioeconomic groups, the poorest wealth quintile has a TFR of 3.2 children per woman. Second lowest wealth quintile is 2.5 children per woman, and the richest wealth quintile is having 1.5 children per woman. It means less than half. That is why when we are growing, our growth is not uniform. Our growth is more concentrated among economically weaker section of society. That has implications for our sustainable development goals. That has implications in addressing effectively our eradication of poverty, hunger and malnutrition, quality of health and education. You can say sustainable development goal number 1, 2, 3, and 4. All are going to be affected adversely because of our existing pattern of growth in the population.
Right.
This is the first important aspect. Another important of this existing growth, that though all our political leadership as well as our academicians, bureaucrats are claiming that India is going to utilize the benefit of demographic dividend up to 2040. But practical situation is, right now, we are producing around 25 million people who seeks job in our country. But we are able to provide job to only 7 million. That is why this gap of 18 million is creating problem and increasing burden of unemployment and underemployment in our country.
Okay, I'll come back to you for the other 2 aspects that you want to raise. Let me get in the other panelists also in on this particular aspect of it. You're suggesting that a population burst or a population boom is a problem because it has issues as far as India's sustainable development goals are concerned, because the growth is not even, and also jobs are not being created at the rate that they wanted to be, that you would like to see it being created, is what you're suggesting. Mr. Bhattacharya, I'd like to bring you into the picture now. A couple of very important points there raised by the professor on the panel. He's suggesting that the demographic dividend might not really be a dividend because we don't seem to be realizing that particular goal.
Absolutely. I think the challenge is how do you retain that dividend status of this demographic boom? The real challenge going forward is not to how to contain population, but how do you nurture and exploit this population growth to your best economic advantages. Now, we have a short window of opportunity in my view. Now, probably for the next 10 to 15 years, and some people say till at least 2050, because that is when the share in 60 years plus population will cross the 20% mark. Right now it is around 8 to 9%. Now, so therefore, as long as it stays below 20%, or some people will disagree that as long as it stays below 15%, probably the advantages of a growing population are quite a few, particularly for a country of India's size and economic stage. Now, therefore, the challenge for the next 15 years at least would be how you raise the economic status of India from being a low middle income country to at least a high middle income country. Therefore, it is very necessary that in the next 15 years you take the necessary steps in creating the growth momentum, making sure that the investments are adequately made in key infrastructure areas, the social infrastructure in particular like education, water and health, so that the what could be actually a demographic dividend should not become a demographic liability or a demographic disaster. So I think what the professor said is absolutely right. We have a short window of opportunity. Even the requirement of creating so many jobs is actually will not be a challenge if we start growing at a faster rate.
Right.
The Prime Minister has set a target of raising the economic size to $5 trillion by 2024. It looks to me on paper a very, very ambitious target, but there is no harm in attaining, setting those targets, because it is very important that if you want to mitigate the negative impact of this kind of a population growth, where the share of older people are rising pretty rapidly, the growth for the older people is actually 370% in this from now to 2050, whereas the total population is growing by only 56%.
Right.
So therefore, the burden of older people on the economy needs to be contained.
Sure.
So therefore, we need higher growth, and therefore demographic dividend can probably be retained.
Absolutely. You know, I'd like to bring you into the picture, Poonam Uthreja. You know, I'm going to focus on one point that A.K. Bhattacharya made about, you know, containing population. He said you can't really contain population, you must focus on something else, because containing population also at the end of the day has its own set of problems, doesn't it? You know, you see China now, you know, with the one-child policy, now they have a problem where the youngsters cannot work for the older generation anymore. The number of older folk are only increasing. So this is going to be a problem as well.
So I want to bring a gender dimension to it too. It's not only about young people and old people. Women in India want fewer children. So the wanted fertility rates are much lower than the actual fertility rates. So there is 13% unwanted fertility in India, or an unmet need for family planning, which means that women don't have access to family planning services for different reasons, including lack of agency, lack of education, family planning services. If you look at that number, you know, in India, the numbers are so large that percentages mask the numbers. So between 2016 and 2030, when we are supposed to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, if we just deal with this 13% unmet need, we will have 30 million fewer population growth in India, lesser population growth in India. So I would like to say that we have to look at both. We have to look at the issue of aging, we have to look at the issue of creating jobs for young people, but we have to look at women's health, their reproductive health, their wanted fertility. You know, it's becoming very expensive for the poor and even the middle class to have more than one child or two children. That's why the middle class is not having more than 2 children. And the aspirations of the women and families have changed with media reaching, not just Doordarshan and all other channels reaching. The aspiration of young people especially has changed. They want fewer children. Women too. Families. So I would not like to disconnect the issue of doing population containment because the women want it. Second, women have more children than they can not just economically afford, but their bodies and their health, given that 70% of women are anemic. So we have to look at health too, and the expenditure on health will go down if we prevent maternal mortality. Family planning is a promotive and preventive measure for bringing down maternal mortality, child mortality. And finally, as Dr. Singh said, we have a large number of goals, SDGs, which we can achieve if you link them to family planning.
Right.
You know, like poverty, like women's empowerment, like young people. Young people, we need an investment in them also to prepare for a demographic decline, not just demographic dividend. Let's, while we create jobs, which is a huge challenge for this government or all across the world, let's invest in young people by increasing age at marriage, investing in their reproductive health and access to contraception, so they postpone having the child.
Absolutely.
And if you look at a report that we have done called Cost of Inaction in Family Planning, our GDP growth will be substantive if we invest in family planning.
Sure.
And so I would like to say that it's not a question either or, but at the same time, we must invest more money in family planning, but in health in general, especially for the older, because, you know, by 2050, India's population of old people is going to grow almost 10 times more.
Right.
So we must invest in aging. I am not saying that. We must plan. We have had an unplanned demographic growth, which we now should take charge of.
Absolutely.
And this
All right.
report is a reminder of that.
Certainly. Let me go across to Mr. S.C. Tripathi, who's been patiently listening in on the discussion so far. You know, there are no real guarantees that the dividend can lead to economic growth, is what the panelists are suggesting, Mr. Tripathi. So what needs to be done going forward? Do we focus on, you know, on the social health of the people? Do we focus on economic growth? What is the focus area in the immediate near future and in the long term?
Yeah. You see, first of all, I think we make too much of this demographic dividend. I don't think it is such a dividend. We have so many young people who are unskilled, unemployable, and if I may be a little rude to them, burden on the services and facilities where their contribution is minimal. So we make too much of demographic dividend. It is a demographic dividend if they are employable, they contribute, and they are skilled. On the other hand, you know, the countries like China and Japan, who have been able to control their population through various measures, they are able to manage people in the older age, because people in the old age are able to look after themselves, create savings for themselves, etc. So that's the first point I want to make, that it is not sustainable the way we are growing. We are only about 35–40% of Chinese land mass, and our Europe in 19th century, when they were having, you know, demographic explosion, they went and occupied the 2 Americas, Australia, etc. We don't have any place to go and occupy, and this land mass is not really going to take all this population growth with the rising aspirations of the people. That is the first point. The second point I wish to make is, China went about it in a very different way, in a manner which was coercive. We also had experimented that during the emergency period, but the reaction was so difficult, so strong, that thereafter no government has really picked up enough courage to go about it in a holistic manner. Now, one of the ways that we look at this is, the one very strong instrument of family planning is women's education, girl child's education, and that is why in the Ministry of Human Resource Development we have put maximum emphasis on education of girl child, young women, and also particularly in the socially, culturally, economically backward areas where special schemes for education of girl children were taken up. If you educate a girl, as Gandhiji said, you educate the whole family, and particularly if the girl is properly educated, she will know the importance of family planning and importance of having a few number of children who are healthy, who are able to manage their affairs when they grow up, and that has to be given full importance.
Sure.
I would also like to say that there are some areas which are socially, culturally, economically somewhat depressed, and we need to focus on those areas and also use the good offices of our social leaders to go into those areas and explain the benefits of family planning, as has been done by one of the panelists here, and that is very necessary. We cannot afford to grow like this in population.
Okay.
You see, on the plus side, because there has been improvement in bringing down the child mortality, infant mortality ratios, in lengthening the age of the people in the country, and therefore on both hands, on one hand, if the total fertility ratio does not decrease, on the other hand there are improvements in healthcare and these benefits, then certainly we are going to have explosion, and this is not demographic dividend. This will lead to demographic disaster.
Okay, okay, all right. Let me get in Dr. S.K. Singh as well once again into the picture. You know, S.K. Singh, you are talking about the implications really of the population explosion. You know, I cut you short when you listed out two. You said sustainable development goals will have, you know, there'll be a problem on that front, as well as jobs as well, is something that you spoke about. Go ahead. You wanted to list out four.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for giving me again this opportunity. Before going to the remaining two areas which I wanted to highlight on this discussion, let me comment on the points raised by our last panelist, probably Secretary Human Resource Development. Sir mentioned about unless until we are not strengthening our family planning program, India's population growth to create, so he used the term, heavy term, but I would like to differ slightly on that. Sir, India has already reached replacement level fertility. As per our National Family Health Survey 4, in 2015-16, our TFR was 2.2. And by 2019, I am confident that India has already achieved replacement level fertility. Our real challenge is the population momentum. We are having 353 million young population. We cannot stop them from marrying. We cannot stop them from childbearing. That is why now India, in the next 3 decades, over next 3 decades, we are going to face the problem primarily because of population momentum. Otherwise, our population control program has been quite productive, quite incentivized, and has also given due results. Madam Poonam Utreja has rightly mentioned that one issue has left, that 13% unmet need of family planning that we are trying to take care. Government has been making a number of efforts by various programs, at least 2 to 3 programs right now on the board, to address those issues of unmet need of family planning. Now I am coming to my last 2 points. That's longevity versus quality of life and social protection scheme. In view of existing population growth, like other developed countries, India is also not far behind in terms of increasing our expectation of life at birth.
Right.
We are also approaching in terms of expectation of life at birth, reaching almost 70 years, as against 72 years for developed countries. But our real challenge is quality of life. Where 21% of 60 plus population is suffering with one or other chronic morbidities. And we are also second highest in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's. Around 4 million cases of dementia and Alzheimer's are reported in 104 million elderly population. 104 million 60 plus population right now we are bearing. That is why there is a need of strong social protection scheme. Fortunately, our Prime Minister has recently, probably in the first cabinet meeting, in the second term, has announced the social protection scheme for larger section farmers of this country.
Right.
Of course, in the first term itself, government has announced the program on Ayushman Bharat, where they are claiming to cover around 10 crore households, around 50 crore population.
Okay.
Exactly.
Points
what is
noted. Let me
happening,
go. Let me
but
bring in the other panelists
on
as
the
well
ground.
on what you have just said, Dr. S.K. Singh. Mr. Bhattacharya. So, going forward, what is it that we need to focus on? Do we need some policy level changes? Some out of the box ideas really to try and address this problem? How do we address
Well,
it?
I think you hit the nail on the head. You need policy responses. Clearly, this is not a situation which will solve itself. It does pose a major challenge to those who are planning these areas of governance. I think the first challenge to my mind is how do you train this large young population? How do you make sure that the dropout rates come down? How do you make sure that they lead a healthy life so that the kind of problems that the Professor Singh was referring to are minimized? So, one set of policy measures you need is how do you make sure that you educate them, you train them, you provide the necessary social infrastructure so that they grow up to being a healthy human being and productive and effective and competent and contribute to economic growth. And that is very, very important. And the second aspect, which is not often highlighted, I would say, is how do you see, ma'am here said, talked about the gender issue, and I think is a very important point. And I am adding to this the gender issue to the regional issue. And I think what we are seeing in this country is population growth. You are talking about India's population growth, India's population explosion, India's demographic dividend, but India has got 30 different countries. Now, different states are growing at the population level at different pace. Now, it is very important, and it so happens that then the West and the large part of the West and North and East are growing differently than the southern states. So, what you are actually seeing is that different states are showing different signs of population stress or demands for growing population. Now,
Right.
it is important that this area not be seen only from a national perspective, but also from a more minute perspective from the state's point of view. How the states are encouraged, why is it that the states in south are better off than the states in east or north?
Right.
So therefore, it has got political implication as well.
Sure.
Because
sure.
if you have population growth which is taking place at different pace, you are going to see more political demands of different types. So I think it's very important that we look at this problem not just from a national point of view, but also from a state-specific point of view.
Absolutely. So, Poonam Mutreja, what's coming out is that it's a tricky issue, and it's going to be a big challenge really as far as the authorities are concerned going forward. So, for a start, should we start with reforms in the health and education sector then? Would that be crucial? Would that be important?
Absolutely, because both being able to earn an income and have better health services and more access to family planning, we have a supply failure. The demand is more than the supply, but the policies that are made and the programs that are made should first look at investment. We need to invest more in our health sector. We only invest 1.3%, and family planning budget is only 4% of the budget and within of the entire health budget, and within that we spend only 1.5% of our expenditure on spacing methods. We spend most of it in permanent methods and giving incentives which are unnecessary, I believe, incentives. But having said that, I'd like to say that we need to invest more in temporary methods, because 70%, as you said, 70% of our population momentum is fueled by a young population. Education is very important because it's the best pill. It is the best pill contraceptive pill you can give for not only empowering women but for fertility to decline, for them to have greater control on their fertility, negotiate contraception, etc. But also women to be, unless women are part of the workforce, no society can bring down not only fertility rates but progress unless women are in the workforce too. And in India we have a declining effect. So policies must also look at creating jobs and looking at the whole issue of declining workforce participation by women. Third, I would like to say that we need to do, as you rightly said, we need to invest tremendously in the 7 states which are high focus states. The government has made taken a step in the right directions by identifying 140 high focus districts. I think that's not enough. We need to work in the whole of Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Assam, in these northern states. Third, I do believe that we need to give high quality services. Why don't people go for family planning or other? Because 10% wanted fertility comes from the fact that we still have high, among especially the poorest, we have high maternal mortality rates, we have also high child mortality rates. So we must provide, because that 10% also wanted fertility because people don't trust that their 1 child or 2 children will survive. So they have more than 5. Final, I think we have to give a huge stress to declining the sex ratios and the discrimination towards girls, so that people don't have endless children in the hope of having
a boy.
Absolutely.
All right. Quick closing concluding remark from you, Mr. Tripathi, on the best way forward in addressing this issue.
As has been pointed out by earlier speakers, have focus on the areas where socio-cultural economic factors are coming in the way. And most important instrument already pointed out is focus on education of girl child, focus on health care for women, focus on more women joining workforce. If you have done all this, I think the problem will take care of itself. Then of course, if there is further requirement, there can be some incentive, disincentives that can be thought of. But as I mentioned, focus on education, focus on healthcare, focus on women joining workforce, focus on giving them more skills, and focusing on those areas where social, cultural and economic factors are coming in the way.
Right. Yes, sir. Very quickly.
Disincentives, I'm very worried about the mention. India has signed the 1984 Cairo program of action, where the world agreed that disincentives not only don't work but they are harmful. So India, where there are voices even in the political parties and other places of bringing in disincentives, that will be a disaster.
Sure.
So let's not take the risk of disincentives. And finally, when we are talking about education, and I totally agree with the panelist who has been focusing on the former secretary has been focusing on education, I think it'll be great if the government can make education for women free and free till colleges.
Okay. All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.